Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you. We're so excited to have you a part of our Lunch and Learn. My name is Elisha Cash, and I am joined by no other than Dr. Nicole Peoples. And we're just so excited to have you be a part of our Lunch and Learn today. For those of you that are joining us for the very first time, the National Women's Empowerment Ministry is a community organization that's a part of Jackson HR and Administrative Services that totally supports women in leadership. And so our goal has always been able to provide professional development, learning opportunities curated by women for women. And so just staying in that particular lane, it's Women Wednesday, as we call it at the National Women's Empowerment Ministry. And we wanted to bring in a phenomenal lunch and learn guest to talk about a topic that is maybe not new to some, but new to others, depending on where you are in your age bracket and if things are transitioning and changing and you're still trying to figure it out. But we wanted to bring on a subject matter expert in regards to hormones. And so we made sure that we sought out one of the best. And today we're talking about the right hormonal balance for the workplace. Did you even know there was such a thing? There actually is. And so, Dr. Nicole Peoples, before we dive into our conversation, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Alicia, for inviting me to do this. I love to talk about anything health and hormones, but I'm Dr. Nicole Peoples. I'm a board certified physician in internal medicine, and I specialize in an area of medicine called integrative or functional medicine. And so I really help women to live 10 years longer, feel 10 years younger by balancing their hormones and really getting to the root cause of their symptoms. So it's a slight shift in the way that most people are used to their doctors, because we address, lifestyle factors. We address hormone balancing when it comes to your health and your hormones. So I have a practice where I run a group health coaching program that helps women to balance their symptoms and lose weight, if that's something that's desirable for them. And I also see patients to administer bioidentical hormone replacement in Cobb County. So so I'm excited to be here and love to talk about the need for hormones in women, particularly because so many women don't realize that they may have hormonal issues, that their symptoms may be driven by their hormones. And particularly, I don't want women to miss out on the opportunity to feel their best and age more gracefully.
So I want to make sure that I heard you correctly. Did you say that you help women live 10 years longer and maybe look 10 years younger?
Yeah. So
Okay.
yes, I help them. I help women live 10 years longer and feel 10 years younger. And the reason,
okay.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is because my approach to healthcare is really about keeping you well. And when you are optimizing the way that your body functions, you actually can reduce the onset of any chronic illnesses or prevent them altogether. And so the causes that cause people to die, you can actually prevent those and lengthen your life. And then the feel 10 years younger portion of that really has to do with so many women are feeling, what I've noticed is that there's a point in time where women start to feel different, right?
Yes.
So you're feeling the way that you've always been feeling your whole entire life. And then it's like you wake up somewhere in your 40s for some in their 50s. And then some even in their 30s, where they're just like, something's not the same. My brain isn't functioning the way it used to function. My energy isn't where it used to be. I can't sleep. The weight can't come off. And they are baffled. And what ends up happening is they go to their doctor and they're like, well, you might have depression and you might have anxiety and you might have, all of these other things. And you get a list of diagnoses, and then you get a list of pills for all of those things. And the reality is that a lot of these things can be driven by our hormones. And so when we start to balance our hormones, we start to feel like we did 10 years earlier, or when our bodies were functioning at a higher capacity.
Well, I'm so excited. I'm glad that I know you because I want to feel 10 years younger.
Who doesn't?
Yes, I can't wait, but I know that there's some steps to that. Of course, once you hear that, yeah, just like sign me up for the 10 years younger. But I want to know more about what all that includes. And so we're just so excited today to have you be a part of the platform. One of the things that we know when it comes to women leaders, we like to increase self-awareness because we realize once that we are more aware, then we can be more productive. And so in this space with professional development and having this type of discussion, we want to kind of hone in on the 3 essential hormones that I know we'll probably talk about a little later that impact culture, positivity, and engagement. And all that has to do with everything that you just said about us as knowing our bodies and knowing what makes us feel well, and to make sure that we nurture that right hormonal balance. So thank you so much for being a part of the network. And I can't wait for you to share the information with us that's going to help us look 10 years younger and feel 10 years younger. So to the audience, if you didn't log on for any other reason, you want to make sure you pay attention and invite your friends to this conversation, to this lunch and learn, to learn more about that. And if you have any questions, please drop your questions in the chat. So one thing I want to just kind of lean in and ask, what are hormones and what do they do? Because we hear hormones, we know, we're familiar with the word hormones, but just tell us a little bit more about something that we may not know about hormones.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a great place to start because most people don't really know what they mean when they say hormones. And so hormones are chemicals in our bodies that have functions, thousands of different functions, and there are hundreds of different types of hormones. And most times when people are thinking about hormones, they're thinking about their estrogen or their testosterone. So these are our sex hormones, but we have so many other hormones and they all work together as in like a symphony. So you have to think not just about your estrogen and testosterone, but there's also a hormone called progesterone, which is also part of that sex hormone. But then there are other classes of hormones. So we then look at our thyroid hormones. So the thyroid hormones also play with the estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. They all have to be in balance. And then the other category that I really focus on is our stress hormones or our adrenal hormones. So things like cortisol. So when you put all of those hormones together, those all work together to help you feel the way that you want to feel. And then the last category, I almost forgot, probably one of the most important, is your metabolic hormones. So specifically like insulin. So a lot of people are familiar with insulin because it has to do with diabetes. But insulin actually really drives a lot of the weight gain that people see. It causes a lot of inflammation. So there are a lot of reasons why people might want to balance their insulin. And as a matter of fact, I think that's the best place for people to start, even before we get to sex hormones.
Wow. That is so amazing. Did you all get all of that? Starting with the insulin hormones, that's really huge because when we first start feeling like what you described earlier, that something's changed in my body mechanism. Like, I don't know what it is. I can't, figure it out. Like for me, I noticed something different with my knees, and I'm like, oh, I went to the doctor. Is there something, what's going on? The first thing we think about, do I need to have knee surgery or something like that? And it's like, no, that's just a sign that you're getting older. You need to stretch and you need to have some exercise and mobility so your muscles can kind of keep up. So some of those things start happening, in our body to let us know that it's changing, that, the 30-year-old Alicia now is totally full-fledged into 46 and some things are just a little off. And so we sit at your feet today to learn more about these hormones. What are some myths about hormones? Like, is it true that men don't have to worry about hormone function? Or is it true that the higher your testosterone levels are, the better or more effective leader you are? And so where does that leave us as female leaders?
Yeah, so that's also a really great question. So absolutely not. Men also have a drop in their hormones, and that it's interesting the way that we look at the science of hormones in general. It's almost like we've made women's hormones sort of obsolete or problematic, and we for some reason ignore hormones in men, but actually they can go through andropause. So if you have a significant other and you notice that they have mood swings, like we act like they don't exist, right? They don't get tired, they don't have mood swings, they don't, get anxiety and depression as their testosterone levels start to drop. They start to lose their libido and their sexual drive. So absolutely, men can have a drop in their testosterone about 1% a year after the age of 30. So men do get hormone replacement as well and can do things to increase their hormones. But you're also very right about the role or the function of testosterone. Testosterone is an amazing chemical in both men and women. But one of the things, or some of the things that testosterone do for our mood, enhances our confidence, enhances our decision-making capacity, enhances our ability to think clearly. And so as we start to shift or decrease the amount of testosterone and all of our hormones for that matter, our progesterone gives us calm. Estrogen also helps with confidence and weight management. So as our hormones start to drop, which can start, for women in their mid 30s, you start to see a decline in, your eagerness, right? Your vitality. And you can start to lose some of that, decision making or that quick decision making capacity. You might feel more overwhelmed. You might feel more anxiety. And so the question then becomes, what's driving it? And so when a lot of people, what happens is we end up putting you on a medicine for your depression, or we might put you on a medicine for anxiety, or we might put you on pain medicines because you've got knee pain. But if the root cause of the problem is this change in your hormones, then why not address the hormones?
Right. Absolutely. And so does that leave us to start taking like testosterone supplements or
No, that's a good question. So it could. And so here's the thing that I try to tell people about sort of what I do and how I think about hormones and how I think about health in general. So none of these things happen in a vacuum, right? So our hormones aren't going to be necessarily the magic pill. Now, I will tell you that when I do put women on hormone replacement therapy, their symptoms change drastically. But I always like to talk about that in the context of everything else, right? So we talk about what you're eating, how your gut is behaving, and if there are things that we need to do to improve that. What's your insulin doing? And what are the fat cells in your body doing? Because your fat cells can actually produce hormones. And then we talk about what's your stress level? How do you manage stress? What's your sleep like? How do you manage sleep? All of these things can affect your hormone levels. And I like to address those via lifestyle first, because what women will oftentimes do is they'll say, hey, listen, I'm having all these problems. I don't want to change anything about my lifestyle. I just want you to give me a pill and make me feel better. And that's one approach, but that doesn't lead to longer living, which is my big shtick. Like, I don't want you just to feel better. I want you to live longer and healthier for longer. So we can address it with lifestyle first, and then we can look at certain supplements, obviously, that can raise your testosterone levels or your estrogen levels, or balance your estrogen and your progesterone levels. Do things in your lifestyle that balance that insulin level, and then once we've kind of started that process, we can also then add in hormone replacement if your levels and your symptoms warrant it.
well, I felt convicted when you said some of the women don't want to change their lifestyles. They just want the pill. Because I was like, just give me the pill. I don't have to do any lifestyle change. But I know that, like you said, that doesn't lend to the longevity of having a healthy lifestyle. And that's ultimately what I want. That's the ultimate goal. And that's why this conversation is so important, because it's helping me to digest and download all the changes that are necessary to get those outcomes. And so when I think about even what you talked about when you discussed the hormones, the testosterone, and before we can even talk about that replacement therapy, I know that there's some other additional hormones that have an impact on the daily workplace. I think about maybe from my career, in my long life career, and how there have been opportunities, or there have been situations at work where I may have thought about responding inwardly a certain kind of way, but I felt like something was off or hormonally off. There's certain times of the month where really I feel like
Yes.
hormonally off, crying at work, and it's just like, oh, I broke my favorite pen. Like, wait a minute, snap back.
Yeah.
Or, get into work and realize you leaving your agenda, and then so at home, and then, it's irking you. So what hormone, if any, causes this? What triggers these different hormones that makes us off a little bit, even when it comes to being fatigued or having brain fog? What hormone kind of throws us off?
So it has to do more with the balance of hormones. It's not
Okay.
one particular hormone that will do that.
Mhm.
And so it's interesting. So I have a daughter and she's 10 and going through puberty. And
Mhm.
I remember one day, her coming home and just started crying for no good reason. And I was like,
Mhm.
it took me a minute, even as a doctor who's like specialized in hormones. I'm like, what is wrong with her? And
Right.
then I realized, it dawned on me, oh, it's puberty, right?
Yes.
Because she's 10,
Yes.
I wasn't expecting it. And as I teach this, but it was me actually experiencing, this is something that women go through throughout their entire lifespan. This
Yes.
idea of their hormones fluctuating and it affecting their moods. And the
Yes.
problem is that, at least in my view, is that when you're 10 years old, nobody explains it to you. Nobody
Right.
explains that every month you are going to have fluctuations in the balance of your hormones. And as a result, it's going to change the way that you feel. And there's nothing wrong with that. We just need to prepare. And so there are different times of the month where, if we were taught as women to understand our cycles better, we would understand that there are going to be certain times of the month where I'm more effective, where I think more clearly, where I'm able to get more done. There are going to be some days when I just want to lay in the bed and do nothing. And it's going to be really hard. And what we've been asked as a society to do is to ignore that and then just push forward anyway. And yes, to some degree, I would say, I'm not saying that every month we should have a month off of work or a month off of family, but I do think that given that knowledge, we can prepare,
Yes.
right? Like, so
Yes.
if and I'm sure people do this already, I don't know, that, if you're going to be on your cycle, you're not going to necessarily plan a vacation, right? So
Right.
you can make changes sometimes in your days to try to help with that. But then the other thing that I don't think as women we're taught is stress management techniques.
Yes.
So I talk about breathing, I talk about meditation, I talk about gratitude and journaling and prayer, and the role that these play in the balancing of your hormones. So one thing you should know about me is, for me, nothing is in your mind. Everything is biochemical. And so when I'm thinking about telling somebody, I want you to start breathing exercises, I want you to start meditation, what I'm thinking about is how that changes your hormones, because it does. And the problem is that for so long, we're ignoring the fact that there's things we actually can do in our day-to-day life to balance those hormones so that we don't fall off the cliff. Because what's happening when you say, I'm going in and I'm just breaking out into tears, part of that may be that your progesterone just dropped and your estrogen is low and that there's some other issues going on. But it also, the other confounding factor is, what was your sleep like? How do you manage stress? Were you at your last end and you just haven't done anything to restore? And restore doesn't mean go get a manicure. I mean, really biochemically restore by sleeping, by meditating, by praying, by giving yourself what your hormones need to actually be resilient. So people always ask me, like, what's the quick fix, right? And
Yes.
there are doctors you can go to who will give you the quick fix. Like even if you watch TikTok and YouTube, there are always people who are like, take this one thing and it's going to save everything. And
Yes.
my point to people is, it's like, yes, we could definitely give you something to help you in the moment, but the
Mhm.
long term, the long term solution is going to be balancing everything over time. So
Yes.
there isn't one hormone. It's understanding that there are several factors that kind of go into helping you maintain a certain lifestyle, and then also recognizing you're a woman and some days are going to be shitty.
Mhm.
Is the
So
way.
so the mani pedi is just not going to be the is not the
That's your thing. If
right.
that's what you do, for me, I hate going to get my I abhor it. I don't want to sit in the chair. I don't want to smell all the fumes. So like for me, that's not my thing. But
Yes.
no, but from a chemical standpoint, if
Yes.
that's the place where you get your respite and it restores you, then absolutely.
Mhm.
But the bigger issue is just thinking, okay, so what else am I doing to ensure that really what you're trying to do is balance your cortisol? That's another hormone we talked about.
Yes.
And to do that, you are probably going to need some affirmations. You're probably going to need some self-talk. You're probably going to need some, again, deep breathing to help
Mhm.
balance your nervous system. So there are probably some other things you can be doing, and you can do them while you're getting your nails done.
And so I think we're going to talk about Zen because I think that's kind of falls into the Zen category a little bit. But before we get to the to the
Okay.
Zen, what are your thoughts? Because we call these the three amigos in this HR space. We kind of know the are learning the hormones that are necessary for people to be happy. So, what are your thoughts about I guess, the happy hormone or the engagement hormone? Or the reward hormones? Like, what are your thoughts about those?
Yeah. So, so so the quick answer to that is yes, all of those hormones have been related to the things that you're referring to, right? So I think
Yes,
oxytocin is sort of your comfort hormone. It's the hormone
yes.
that gets released when you are giving birth
Mhm,
or when you are breastfeeding your children, and it causes attachment. You can actually replace that as well,
mhm.
oxytocin. The engagement hormone, which one was that one? Remind me what your
So the engagement hormone is the oxytocin one,
oh, okay, and then
and I think is it dopamine is the reward
reward.
one.
Mhm.
Okay, and then I think is it serotonin?
Serotonin. Okay.
Yes,
So
that's the happiness one.
yeah, so the reason I'm hedging here is because all of these hormones work together to do it's not like one hormone, but um,
Yes.
the dopamine absolutely it helps in the reward center, and serotonin absolutely helps in the way that you're describing as well. Again, it has to do with when you have an issue with compassion, is that because you don't have enough oxytocin, or is it because there are probably some other issues that are helpful in the way that
Okay, talk more. Please talk more.
yeah.
Yes.
So again, it is like um having different lifestyle skills that allow us to understand where we're deficient. So
Yes.
for example, if you feel like you're emotionally labile, where you just kind of go up and down and you don't feel like you're engaged, then we have to go back and say, what might be driving this other than a hormone? Because oftentimes it's other than a hormone that I can give you to make you feel better. I can definitely find ways to increase your oxytocin levels. We can say, this is how I want you to do this. I want you to spend more time with an animal. I want you to hug your children, get
Yes.
more hugs and affection. Those are things that will naturally increase your oxytocin and help you feel better. My point is that do you have strategies in your daily day life that help to constantly increase that oxytocin? You constantly looking for affection, constantly getting that feedback. Are you doing things to help with your dopamine? So, for example, dopamine is another hormone that gets released when we eat sugar. So, what happens for a lot of people, sugar addiction, is when you are missing that or you're looking for that dopamine crave and it gives you that reward that you're looking for. But you can replace that. We don't want to give you dopamine for that. What we want to do is we want to find other things that increase your dopamine. So maybe going for a walk, maybe taking a dance break, maybe things that bring you joy, talking to someone that you love, doing meditation and visualizing people who you are around that make you happy and joyful. We call those restorative emotions. So there's a lot of things that increase your dopamine, but they're all in your behaviors. They're things that you do throughout the day. And then serotonin is a really big one because there are pills that we call them SSRIs that we give in depression because of serotonin. But serotonin is a very tricky hormone, so I won't talk too much on that because there's so much that goes into serotonin. But
Yes.
yes, the point I'm making is that there's a lot of lifestyle things that you can do to adjust those hormones. It's not something that you would necessarily replace.
So you're telling me today that I can take a walk and that walk will replace my craving for fruit snacks and sour gummies that gives me, my midday happy.
Yeah, so actually I teach a course called Cocaine in My Cookies, which is all about sugar addiction.
Hmm.
And I literally walk people through the process of beating their sugar cravings. It's
Okay.
taking a walk is a part of it, but
Yes.
the whole program includes a lot of things. So part of that wouldn't be, oh, let me have my sweets and go for a walk, because then you're not changing the biochemistry. What you have to do is you have to remove the sweet, and then you have to do things to replace that on a consistent basis. And that consistent basis can be something as small as 5 days. And then
Yes.
you'll notice that you don't need the sweets as much. You'll find
Yes.
other things to replace it. But in that little 5 days, yes, when I'm telling people, okay, I want you to stop eating those gummies, I want you to put the chocolate away, and I don't want you to have, all the bread in the bread basket. During that time, I will say, replace it with something else that brings you joy, like taking a walk or calling a friend or taking a dance break. Yeah, so there, I I have to put that caveat, because the way you put it is tricky. You're gonna get me in the trick. You're gonna be like, oh,
Right.
sugar cravings for taking a walk. I'm like, no, that's not exactly what I said. But yes, it is a part of the process. Yeah.
It is part of the process. So if you all are watching, you have questions, please drop your questions in the chat. This is a lunch and learn. And so we want you to engage with us a little bit. I mean, Dr. Peoples has been so gracious in helping us navigate some of the behaviors that we know that we have to change in order to embrace and to look at this hormone look at our hormones holistically. I would say that is definitely have been one of my takeaways from our discussion, because you kind of already answered how we activate those hormones. One of the questions, because especially women in women in leadership, we often want to be able to hone in on what's going to make us mostly successful. So, what are the success hormones, that we need to boost to succeed as a leader at work? We've leaned in with testosterone, but is there anything else that you can offer us additionally to that?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, I love testosterone for that, right? So
Yes.
oftentimes, so I would let me also make the point that there are going to be moments where hormone replacement is the answer, right? Or
Yes.
is going to be a big part of it. So if you're feeling very like a lot of anxiety and depression or overwhelm, you have that feeling of really fatigue and difficulty making decisions and those things, then I would encourage you to get your testosterone levels checked and
Yes.
see if that's something that you would like to replace. But it's not just testosterone that can do that. It's also the balance between estrogen and progesterone, right? It's also the insulin. One of the areas that I see affects particularly African American women, every woman, but really African American women, because we have such high levels of diabetes, is this fluctuation in our blood sugar. And that can happen because you're taking that, what do you call them? The little sweet things that you like. Um,
Our fruit snacks or the sour gummy bears. Yes.
Yes. So what happens is that what we'll do is we'll have these sweets and it'll give us this moment of high, and then we have this really bad low.
Mhm.
And that's that lull, that brain fog, that fatigue in the middle of the day. And it may have nothing to do with your per se with your testosterone or your estrogen. It may have to do with the fact that your blood sugar is going up and down, and that's why you're having these fluctuations through the day. And that's why I usually tell women, particularly if you have a known history of diabetes, pre-diabetes, or you have weight issues. And this, you don't have to fall into one of those three categories to have issue with your insulin, but for those people who do have those three issues, really need to be aware of what their insulin level is. And you may even, so one of the strategies that I use in my practice is something called a continuous glucose monitor. You may have heard of this, you may not have. A lot of people are using these, even if you're not a diabetic. So it's a device that you put on your body that can actually watch your blood sugar throughout the day. And you can actually see if your blood sugar is dropping. And most women can correlate that with, that lull, that brain fog. And so for people who want to function really high, I tell them, really think about your carb exposure, your carbohydrate exposure. So it's not just the sweet things, but it's the bread, it's the French fries. And you would be surprised at how much more energy you have, how much more vitality, how much more clarity of mind you have when you get your diet in order, because it balances that insulin hormone. So That would be the place where I would typically start, even before we went into testosterone. Unless we tested your testosterone levels and they were in the pumps, then we might give you testosterone while we're also, fixing your diet.
Oh my God, this is just so amazing. I mean, I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna make some changes. Especially because I want to look 10 years younger and I want to possibly live 10 years longer, add some years to this. Um, we talked about Zen just a little bit before we bring it to a close. In neutralizing stress, or choosing Zen as a cure, or I guess a counter for women leaders to help us balance in a workplace. What are your recommendations? You gave a short list a little bit before about being able to provide balance, but I'm pretty sure there's some other things professionally we can lean into.
Absolutely. This is one of the areas that I'm most passionate about, because I do believe that we are not trained to deal with our stress. Like we
Yeah,
just, I think about my kids, when they're under a stressful situation, do they have the skills? Who's teaching them the skills to manage stress? And most people don't have the skills to train them. When I was a kid, it was just prayer, right? But nobody really explained to me, the relationship between prayer and how that was going to help me manage my stress.
yeah,
And so, yes, I think prayer is phenomenal. It is equivalent to meditation
yeah,
when we are talking about its effects, but really having an understanding of how to use prayer and meditation to lower our cortisol levels, lower our hormones. So, just some quick techniques that I can share with you in the last few seconds. So, breathing is my go-to. It's my
okay,
favorite because
yeah,
it's easy, it's quick, and even in a stressful situation. So I know people have said, oh, when you're upset, take a deep breath, but there's a reason why. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to take that deep breath. So what you want to do is you want to breathe from your belly. And so you want your belly to expand. The reason that is because there's a muscle in your abdomen called your diaphragm. And when that muscle decreases with the big breath in, diaphragm decreases, it pulls on a nerve called your vagus nerve, and it actually causes your body to go into a calmer state. And so what I usually tell people to do is, when you're feeling really anxious, you're feeling your shoulders lift up, the tension, the headache, is take a few minutes of just some deep belly breaths. There are many different ways to do this. You could do something called box breathing, where you take a deep breath in for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts, breath out for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts, and then do that over and over again. There are different types of breathing techniques you can use to help get your center back, right? And just to sort of clear yourself so you can move on. Another really great thing to do while you're doing that, or you can do it separately, is something I called restorative emotion. So it's where you take these deep breaths and then you focus in on a moment or a person that brings you joy, or an experience where you felt really great. And what that does is it helps to shift you, what we call your nervous system. We shift you from the more fight or flight or sympathetic into the more rest and digest, parasympathetic. So when you are focusing on that positive restorative emotion, you're able to actually shift your way your body responds and bring you into a more peaceful place. And so I talk a lot about this. I talk about how to manage stress, the techniques you can use, balancing your nervous system, what that really means. So there are tons of things that you can do. And if you haven't learned anything about this, you may need to, right? Like if you're feeling really stressed and you don't have any skills in your toolbox to manage those stress, that should be a sign to you that I'm missing something. And this is why the stress doesn't seem to want to go away, because I haven't been doing anything to actually balance it.
oh my gosh, this is so super amazing. If you are enjoying our Lunch and Learn, please make sure you like and share with your network today. Actually, I'm going to have Nicole back next week. We're going to be on a different platform and talking about a special segment in the female's life. It starts with the letter M and leads into the word men. And so we want to hear more about hormones, life, longevity, operating at our best as female leaders. And so, if this was very helpful for you, Dr. Nicole Peoples, can you tell us how we could connect with you if someone wants to learn more about, just kind of plugging in to your programs and what you have to offer?
Yeah, so you can start by just following me on Instagram. That's usually where I am mostly. So at Dr. Nicole Peoples on all platforms, I'm at Dr. Nicole Peoples. So on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at Dr. Nicole Peoples. So I have several YouTubes where I kind of talk about things on this as well. But on Instagram, you can also check my bio site or what's the link at the top of your Instagram? I can't remember what it's called. The link in the bio.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So there are plenty of opportunities for you to either take a free course with me. You can sign up for one of my programs. One is called the Black Women's Guide to Health, Hormones, and Longevity. This is a lifestyle program that helps women lose weight, balance their hormones. So that's a great program. I think the next launch is in March or end of March, beginning of April. I have a new program coming out called the People's Life Reset, which also helps to really for weight loss, but also helps to get you on that journey to resetting your body. And then you can also, if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, you can go to drnicolepeoples.com and you can learn about all of my services there and some of my courses. And lastly, I would say if you look at anything and you're interested in working with me, you just book a discovery call and you can get on a call with me or my health coach and we'll walk you through the process.
Yeah, you all, I can tell you right now, this insight to, learning about your hormones is larger than you think. It sounds we all about solution-based options. And I think this is definitely solution-based to our whole wellness as career women. We covered a lot of bases today. We covered weight loss, stress management, hormones, long life. We covered so much today. And I just appreciate you so much for being a part of our network and sharing with us today. For those of you that don't know, in just next Saturday, we have our annual Red Dress Brunch. And if you would like to talk to Dr. Peoples, she will be at our brunch next Saturday as well. So stop by and, tell her that you got a chance to hear her today and what you may have learned, or if you have any additional questions and how you want to connect with her. But we're excited to have her next Saturday at the Red Dress Brunch. And if you would like to opt into our female leadership community, this information is right below us to receive updates and exclusive content about the Red Dress Brunch experience, as well as any upcoming leadership programming that we have, such as today, like our Lunch and Learn. And so we want to stay connected with you, and this is the best way for us to do that. And if there's anything that we can do for you, or you have any questions that we can help you navigate through as a female leader, inbox me, Elisha V. Cash on LinkedIn, and I love to be at your service. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and being a part of our Lunch and Learn discussion. Thank you, Dr. Peoples, for allowing us to pull on your brain today. It has been such a pleasure. We appreciate you so much for taking the time to come and talk to our female leaders today about hormones and how we can have the right hormone balance for the workplace. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Bye-bye.